I walked into the masjid with my father and we missed the Jamaat for Asr. We entered into one of the big mosques in Birmingham and there was an English lady there who had just entered before us. One of the people at the masjid said, "This woman, she wants to see the masjid. Can you take her around?" I said, "Fine." We went up to the first floor. And this English lady, we opened the doors, we said, "We can enter into the main hall." She stopped. She didn't want to go in. She didn't have the hijab on. She pointed towards the Muslim ladies who were in their hijab and she said to us, "Look at how respectfully your women dress." These are not my words. She wasn't Muslim. She said, "Look at how respectfully and honourably your women dress." And then she burst out into tears. When she calmed, we asked her to enter into the mosque and she said, "No. I will not enter into the mosque dressed like this." She didn't have the hijab on her head. I didn't tell her to put on the hijab. I didn't enforce it on her. I didn't say you can't see the mosque without a hijab. She said, "I will not enter." What happened next? She accepted Islam and she left the mosque. Now look at this situation of New Zealand. If a situation like that didn't wake up the Muslims to come back to their religion, to come back to the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to come back to the hijab, when the non-Muslim women are putting on the hijab in solidarity with the Muslims, and the Muslim women still don't want to put on the hijab. If that's not a sign, if that's not a miracle sent from Allah in our time, that the women of New Zealand put on the hijab on that Friday in solidarity with the Muslims. If the Muslim women don't put on the hijab, then what more of a miracle are they waiting for? That in a time when Islam and the Muslims are under the heaviest attack, Allah showed them a miracle. But how many of them saw it as a miracle? How many of the Muslims saw it as a miracle? How many of the Muslims sat down with their children and their families and their daughters and their sisters and their mothers and their wives and said, "Look at these women, they've put on the hijab." If they, whilst they are not Muslim, have put on the hijab and shown us solidarity, then how should we be in fulfilling Allah's commandment of the hijab? Sheikh Hisham al-Burhani, the great Hanafi faqih, the son of the great Imam Sheikh Sa'id al-Burhani, he said to me 60 years ago when I was a little boy of 10 years old in the streets in old Damascus, he said there wasn't a single Christian woman except that she would have the hijab on her head. He said we never saw Christian women without the hijab on their heads. Is the hijab is not to show the other women I've got this on. No, it's to show Allah I am attending to your rules. It's to show Allah, here I am. It's to show Allah, I'm going to be the way you want me to be, not the way these people want me to be. We have to understand that the hijab is not a style. It's not a style, it's an obligation. It's not a style. For believe me, if now from certain places in the world, women put on the hijab, all of the women of the world will put on the hijab. Not because it's a sign of modesty, but because it's become part of the dress. It's become part of the dress code. And I wouldn't put it far if a man put on the hijab and all of the men of the world put on the hijab too. Because that's how idiotic and stupid the mind has become of people, that whatever silly things anybody makes into a trend, they will follow after. They will follow after. But we must stay strong and have hope in the words of the Prophet ﷺ. He said, لا تزال طائفة من أمتي ظاهرين على الحق لا يضرهم من خالفهم حتى يأتي أمر الله. He said, a group from my ummah will always be attached onto the truth. Those who oppose them will never be able to defeat them until Yawm al-Qiyamah comes. Until Allah's matter befalls, i.e. the day of judgment. Which means that gives us hope that we can still be from the people of truth and we can still continue on our ways and not lose our religion. The more difficult the task becomes, the higher its reward. And don't ever forget that if times become difficult upon you wearing the hijab, times become difficult upon you to keep your modesty, and you uphold it and you keep it, Allah's assistance will be with you. Allah's reward will be with you. And what more do you need than that?